Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Connors, pronouns she, her, and I am one of the co-directors of the Notebooks Collective. We are a virtual literary arts space focused on community, connection, and continued learning. The Notebooks Collective believes firmly that Black Lives Matter and acknowledges that as a virtual organization, our offices are on the land of the Kickapoo, Nipmuc, Agawam, Massachusetts, and Pawtucket tribes. Native peoples across the world continue to preserve and celebrate their cultures, and we encourage you to support Native writers and artists. As we do this land acknowledgement, we also want to recognize those who are suffering from conquest and terror in the Middle East and Ukraine. Our thoughts are with them. And we know that these are very stressful times, and we are so glad that you have joined us tonight to celebrate community. And I will now welcome Lisa to introduce our guests.
Oh, wrong screen. Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa Allen. I am she, her, hers. I am one of the directors of the Notebooks Collective. Because of our busy lives, there are times when scheduling doesn't move quite as fast as we would hope for. For example, when a guest has time, we don't, and vice versa. So while we knew we wanted to do an event with Leah, and we knew that Leah's newest book of Tyrant was being released in April, the event stalled a bit in the ether until I ran into her at a table at the end of AWP. And that was when things really began to gel. Then, when she mentioned that she was interested in being in conversation with Melissa Fite Johnson, who, at the time of AWP, I had a serious poet crush on, but had never met in person. Well, it seemed that everything about this event was serendipitous in some way. Since then, Melissa and I have read together locally for Bear Review, and I can't tell you what a thrill it is to welcome another Kansas poet to the Notebooks Collective family. I'm telling you all of this because while we always respect the work of poets who are in conversation here, and we're giddy that Leah will read from Of Tyrant and Melissa will read from Midlife Abecedarian, which are both brand new releases, the logistics of how events happen isn't always so sweet. But this one is, and we're beyond thrilled to welcome both of them here tonight. Leah Umansky is the author of 3 collections of poetry, most recently of Tyrant from Word Works Books 2024. She earned her MFA in poetry at Sarah Lawrence College and has curated and hosted the Couplet reading series in NYC since 2011. Her creative work can be found in such places as the New York Times, the Academy of American Poets Poem a Day, USA Today, Poetry, and American Poetry Review. Her new hybrid memoir, Delicate Machine, an exploration of womanhood, hope, and heart in the face of grief and a global pandemic, is looking for a home. She can be found at www.leahumansky.com or at Leah, Leah.umansky on Instagram. Melissa Fite Johnson is the author of 3 full-length collections, most recently Midlife Abecedarian from Riot in Your Throat in 2024. Her poems have appeared in Ploughshares, Pleiades, Had, Whale Road Review, SWWIM, and elsewhere. Melissa, a high school English teacher, is a poetry editor for The Wait, a journal for high school students, and Porcupine Lit, a journal by and for teachers. She and her husband live with their dogs in Lawrence, Kansas, where she co-hosts the Volta reading series at the Replay Lounge. And now I want to turn it over to Leah and Melissa.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you, friend?
I'm good. It's really always funny to kind of hear our introductions, like our bios side by side, because there's just like so much we have in common, like on the page and off the page.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's true. It's true. It also makes me think, just like kind of jumping in, how intimidated I used to be by other poets based on their bio. So it's so interesting to like start with that. And it can feel intimidating, like to hear, I mean, you've been in, in very impressive publications and like, and it's so funny because I think a big turning point for me as a poet was when, it sounds so stupid and obvious, but when I realized people were like more than their bios, like
It's true.
like, oh, Leah and I don't get along because we're like, oh yes, you have similarly been published in impressive places, but like because of karaoke and teaching and the really important things. So
And pop culture. We can't
yeah,
forget pop culture.
pop culture is huge. Yes. So absolutely.
But also the fact that we both run reading series too. So it's like there really are multiple threads that connect us, which is really interesting, especially having this conversation on Zoom, because it's like I'm assuming we would have met in real life. Hopefully fate would have brought us together, but the truth of the matter is that we first met on Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah.
As teachers, so as teacher poets.
Which is such a great little niche. Like, I don't know. I think that reading and okay, so like we're getting into it now. This is like the history of us.
The history of us.
The history of us. But it's like the most maybe important reading of my life, maybe was that reading. Do you want to tell about it? Because you were a featured reader at that reading.
Oh, is that true? I don't remember.
You
Yeah,
were,
so
you were. The second year.
our
We should do it again. I don't know if there's another one planned. It should be annual.
It should be annual. So our friend Donna Boyer, who's an amazing poet, a retired middle school teacher, artist. I mean, curator. Donna is terrific. Had a Zoom reading for, I can't remember what it was called. It was like for poets who teach.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't
And
remember
like,
what the actual name was.
I
But then
can't
it
either.
became a panel, and then it was a panel at AWP.
That's right. Yes.
But it was before she started 100 Pictures of Honey.
Yeah. And it was so important, like, because I mean, lots of poets teach, but I feel like most teach university, like,
Exactly.
that's, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're right. I was one of the featured poets, and there were a couple of us, and then, there were other poets who were teachers, and you were one of them. And it was really our destiny because you had read your poems, and I totally fell in love with you and totally fell in love with your book. And the real thing that really sold me on you, and I'm gonna embarrass you now, but
Okay.
we have an hour to embarrass each other,
That's true.
that you sang in your poem. And it's not like it's the first time I've ever heard a poet like sing lyrics that are in their poem, like song lyrics, but it's something that I had never done before. And if I have lyrics in a poem, like I usually read them. And so when you did that, which obviously then became like our karaoke Destiny Dream, which is now like a yearly annual thing at AWP that we curate. But like it also was pivotal for me because it got me to kind of bite the bullet and do that. And so at that AWP conference, you were in the audience, and
I was.
And I sang a lyric, and it was terrifying.
But it was awesome. I loved it so much. And I love that you say we curate karaoke, by the way. That's amazing.
We do.
We do. We get so many people to join us, and it's just a love fest. But if anyone here is going to AWP next year, we will absolutely have a karaoke night, and you are invited, and you should come.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
We should find that bar now, probably.
Yeah, we should. LA, we really should. But what, like, another really important lesson for me, like, I only started going to AWP 3 years ago. I think I've just gone 3 years in a row. And I know tons of people who've gone forever. And I think for me, I'm actually glad I didn't start going until recently because I would have been way too insecure. I think I would have been a wreck. I would have had imposter syndrome like you wouldn't believe. And what's awesome is that this might sound nuts, but I don't think I really get imposter syndrome anymore. And people might be like, how did you solve that or fix that? And I think it was just a priority shift. Like, I had to reframe how I was looking at everything. And for example, AWP, I don't look at that as a place to like quote unquote network or impress people, like, or any of those things that I probably thought it was about 10 years ago. Now I go so I can room with my publisher turned friend Courtney. We room together every year at an Airbnb, and so I can go sing karaoke with you and our obviously. And those are like seriously the two things I look forward to the most. And it's more like just a chance to be around people I love. And I don't know, that's changed everything for me. And good things are like happening, but I think it's because I'm looking at it the right way. And
Yeah.
yeah.
It's mindset, you know, it's mindset and this perspective. And I agree because it could be a really daunting thing. And I've gone for years now. I have no idea what number like next year will be, but it's always something I have to save up for because it's expensive. And the fact that it's in LA next year is going to kill me, but like I'm already starting to save some money. But for me, I just think it's really fun. And I really love seeing people like you that I don't see regularly, you know? And of course it's more worthwhile when I have a book to promote. And like last year or this year 2024 was really exciting because my book had the early release. But I know lots of people that have gone like once and were just like, this is absolutely terrifying, I'm never, like, I can't do it, you know, or it's so like they like sweat or they get like chills or they out. And so it's totally not for everyone. And I have other friends that totally treat it like a vacation. And I think that's a really great thing to do too. But the bottom line really is just kind of, and I think it's what brings me and you together. It's like the idea of community.
Yes. And I will tie that back real quick to that Zoom where we met originally, because that was so formative for me, because it was like I'd found my people. Like,
it felt like that.
It really felt like that. I was like, oh, look at this. I didn't know there were so many of us, like, you know, who taught secondary school and were poets, and like you were all so incredible. And then at that panel, hearing you and Donna and Joan
and Matthew
and Ashley, I still remember who was part of it. It was so good. And everybody was just talking about things that were so me, and that had never really happened before. And I think that was part of it as well. And of course, my singing. I mean, that was the other piece.
It's the number one thing.
The number one thing. So, but yeah, that's the history of us. That's what brought us together. And now every year we do see each other at AWP. So I think that's kind of, that's the through line. So
yeah, absolutely. And also just like, I guess we could start talking about like the notion of pop culture, which I was thinking about this afternoon, because I remember in that event, I was chatting with you in the Zoom because your poem, the garbage poem, I can't remember the title, but you feature.
I'm only happy when it rains.
And I remember chatting with you in the Zoom about like garbage, how great garbage is. And then when I actually got your book, I was like, oh my God, we have this whole pop culture kinship. And I just finished watching Shogun on Hulu, on FX.
I need to.
It's so good. And like I've already have some ideas for poems, which maybe I'll try to write once I'm on summer break. And so like I've been thinking like, are there any new poems you're working on that have any kind of pop culture references in them?
Oh, that's a great question. I actually just wrote, okay, so to get really like serious for a moment, most of what I'm writing right now is about my mom, because we're like going through a real transition phase. Things not great with us. But I believe so strongly in pop culture that I think it can get us through like almost anything. I don't know. Yeah. I just wrote a poem that has General Hospital as like a
interesting,
because my mom and I used to watch that together after school every day, and I realized there were some interesting like parallels. I think probably the most famous relationship on General Hospital and my mom and me. Like just to like say it, I'll just say it. I don't know. Did you ever watch General Hospital, by the way?
I am not like a soap opera person now.
I don't know if you even knew that I was, but yes.
It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, growing up, I loved Days of Our Lives and then General Hospital.
My sister and my mom used to, I think, watch General Hospital together.
It's like, it is a pretty good bonding experience. But I'll just say that the central relationship, like the most watched wedding, like in televised history, I think still is Luke and Laura.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah,
everyone knows Luke and Laura, and they're like, I mean, I loved Luke and Laura, but what's really interesting is the like history of Luke and Laura. Like, they first met because he content warning, but like raped her in a nightclub. And people forget that.
Mm.
It's like,
I didn't
yeah,
know
see, mouth drop. People just think that they're like the most romantic couple, but they have like this really dark undertone.
Mm.
I sort of like mirror that. Like my mom and I are like watching it and we're like,
Wow.
there's like a really dark undertone. And anyway, like it may sound silly, but like, I mean, not to you because you love pop culture as well. But like, I think there's so much truth in
Yeah.
what surrounds us, what we grow up on, what we love now. And I was really encouraged not to write about pop culture when I first started writing. Were you
Yeah.
encouraged not to?
I mean, I don't know that I was encouraged not to. It's just like I didn't realize you could. Like I wasn't familiar with poets who did write about pop culture or that were inspired by pop culture, but I knew like very early on that pop culture inspired me, and I knew that so much of what a story is constantly repeated and retold. You know what I mean? And so
Yes.
for me, like that, I didn't really start to acknowledge it until I started writing my Mad Men poems.
Mhm.
And
I love those.
well, thank you. But like, and I have other poems I've written that incorporate pop culture, but nothing like my, Dawn Dreams and I Dream chapbook. And I remember kind of being pigeonholed at one point in time that like I was a pop culture poet. And I was like, yeah, but that's not all I am. But
Right.
but
Yeah.
again, just like you said about General Hospital, like and your mom, all stories have some kind of vehicle, and
Mhm.
I think that the beauty of being a storyteller of any kind or an artist of any kind is you're always trying to kind of convey something. And so like even in those Mad Men poems, like there's the I persona, but like I, Leah, like I'm also like I the poet, I'm also trying to convey something through the pop culture. And I think once I kind of acknowledged that and owned on to it, which, was really just a matter of confidence, then everything just opened for me, you know. But no one
Yes.
teaches you that. Like you either learn it or push yourself in that direction or you don't. And it's really about taking risks.
It is about taking risks. I think the original reason I was kind of discouraged from writing about it is this idea that it would like date the poems, like
Yeah.
they wouldn't feel timeless. Like we're supposed to be Robert Frost and it's supposed to be about nature and like it can be read whenever. But I don't know. Or like it would exclude people, like
Mm.
if they didn't, grow up watching General Hospital, then they're out. But I feel the opposite. Like I think if you write the poem well enough, it doesn't exclude anyone. It's either like neutral, you're just like reading it and you're reading it for the other elements, or it's incredibly inclusive and inviting. Like, oh my gosh, someone else, like at the reading that Lisa and I did together recently, I read a Sweet Valley High poem and there were a bunch of people
Oh,
who were like,
yay.
oh man, that was my jam. Yeah.
So funny.
And yeah, and there were people there who hadn't ever read those books, but they were so I
I
love
had
it.
the board game.
Oh no, you did?
I
Okay.
totally had the board game. Well, I think because at the end of the day, it boils down to your writing. It's not even necessarily about the pop culture reference.
Yeah.
I mean, like my Game of Thrones poems, for example, I sent to so many places years ago and they were like rejected left and right. And then they were eventually accepted by Poetry Magazine, which I'd been submitting to for like 15 plus years.
Right.
And I remember speaking to Don Scher about it, and he knew of the show, but never even watched it and never read the book. So I was just like, wow, like that's a testament just to the writing alone.
Yeah,
And so
completely.
like I think that's the point. Like not that like every poem has to stand the test of time, but I think a lot of them do.
Yeah. And I think there's maybe nothing wrong with a poem being a time capsule, like
Exactly. Yeah.
it's a setting, time and place, like what shows were on when we were kids, what, media we were consuming and like how it changed the way we thought. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, how many of my like hangups about my body are because of Sweet Valley High? Like probably a lot of them.
Totally.
So I don't know. But I do think that speaks to something where I used to really just again this reframing thing, I used to really think about how I was allowed to write about certain things and not allowed to write about other
Yeah.
things. And I just feel like in the last few years especially, I've really gotten a lot more playful and I have like remembered that writing is fun, and that might sound
Yeah.
silly, but I was so tortured. I wanted to matter so badly, and
Yeah.
that
The
was my
ego.
yeah.
It's true. It's really a mind fuck.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
and it
well,
was
it's
the word I
interesting.
didn't have, right? I just wanted like the
Right.
validation was so important because then I felt like I could hang with the people I admired.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's funny. So, like, I'm sure you've seen me post this on social media, but I'm like obsessed with Rick Rubin's book,
Yes,
The
I have.
Creative Act, which
Yeah.
like everyone should read. Everyone should get a copy. I had my poetry workshops in my high school elective read it this year, and it like really did change so many lives. And I'm obsessed with it. And my boyfriend's reading it now, and like I might read it again. Like I just like I'm obsessed with it. And just that whole idea of play is really important. And like it's also really scary, I think, the older you get. Um, but I think that I mean you and I have talked about this a lot, that a lot of my poems, even I mean, even if I'm Tyrant, where a lot of these poems are dark and it's like, you know, about hatred and scary, there's still a lot of play within the language. And so I do think that that's important, but you kind of have to let yourself go there.
I love, yeah, what you do with language in that book. Like it's incredible. And I thought it was incredible on the page, but then we read together at Donna's series, the 100 Pictures of Honey, and I was like, oh my God, like it was
Oh,
really,
thank you.
yeah, such an incredible reading. But yeah, it's funny that you kind of said that like maybe it's scarier as you get older to play, because for me it has been infinitely less scary. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I just no longer am like, what if this is terrible? That's not like where I
Right.
lead. That's not where I start anymore.
Well, maybe not for us in writing, but I think if we were to try other things, other
That's
disciplines, for example, you know, like I'm talking specifically about art. You know,
Yeah.
like I've been wanting to try painting because my boyfriend's a painter, and I'm always like, yeah, I'm gonna try, and then I haven't, and I'm like, oh, in the summer when I'm on break, I will. So like, we'll see if I actually do. But yeah, like it is kind of scary because again, you want your work to be good, and like it might not be good the first time.
That's true.
But in terms of what you were saying before, the thing that I was always told not to do was all the things that I do.
Yeah.
Like you like really focus on the I, like having an I in a poem was like I was always told like no, and writing about love, using the word love. And then I bet that the word love and the word I are probably the two most used words I have in all my poetry.
Oh my God, I love that. Actually, I love that. Those are the first two words I said. Um, I also
Um,
feel like that happened. Like that I've been with my husband for like 20 plus years, a long time. And I remember I would write poems about him for like my writing group. And somebody once said to me, like, well, how many cute poems about your husband and you like drinking tea can you have? And at the time that really intimidated me, and I thought, oh right, I'm supposed to only write about like the hard stuff and the
right.
trauma. Like, yeah. And lately I've been like, I don't only want to write about trauma. I,
Yeah.
I do want to write about joy and love. And turns out a lot of people like the happy love poems because the world is really awful sometimes, and it's nice to read things like that. And it's so funny, like it does matter. And like
Yeah, of course.
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, and it's weird for me because like so like even my students, especially my eighth graders, you know, I teach eighth and 10th grade mostly, they all think that like of Tyrant, like I just wrote it this year. And I'm like, no, guys, like I've been writing this book for years and sending it out for years. And they can't believe that I'm almost done with the new book, which I'll probably finish up in June. And the new book is all about what you just said. Like it's all about joy and wonder and love. And I mean, this is the first relationship I've been in a really long time. And so I've written a ton, almost every poem is a love poem, but it's always kind of been a love poem to myself or a love poem to the world. And now this new book has all these joyous poems about love and wonder. And it's so different than of Tyrant. It's crazy. But I think, yeah, I think, you know, and I think I've said this to you before, maybe I was talking about it in class. Like, I think about someone like Mary Oliver, right? Who I feel like I've been seeing all over the internet, and she's been famous for years and years and years. But I feel like someone like her always kind of got a bad rap, or I
Yeah.
always kind of looked at her in like a weird light, like she wasn't a great poet. And like more and more in recent years, I'm just like, because her poems come off so simple, I think you look at them in a certain way, but they're such beautiful poems about just what we're talking about
Yes.
wonder, about appreciation, about paying attention. And I
Yes.
think that's kind of why we're gravitating back to that now. Like, it is because we're out of the COVID pandemic, but it's also because the world is such a horrible place right now, and we need a sense of comfort.
Absolutely. Well, I think we're reevaluating a lot of all that,
Yeah.
like how much of the dismissal of Mary Oliver is sexism. And I don't just mean
Yeah, that's true.
the obvious sexism, it's like internalized sexism that
Absolutely.
we were taught. And then like to bring it back to pop culture, this is such a bonkers reference, but I don't know if you saw and loved Promising Young Woman like I did, but I was obsessed with that
Oh, I
movie.
haven't seen it. No, I didn't
Yeah.
watch it.
I love it. Well, there's a scene that is set to Paris Hilton's Stars Go Blind,
Oh
which
God.
I never realized is an amazing song. I'm serious. It's so good. And it was like the movie is about the very thing we're talking about, which is like
Yeah.
the people we just like completely dismissed. I'm not saying Paris Hilton is like the Mary Oliver. I don't mean that. But it was
Now you're gonna be trending.
but yeah. But I swear it was such an intentional move to make this awesome scene set to that song because the
Oh,
whole
interesting.
movie was like, don't dismiss anyone. Like,
Mm.
don't rethink. Like, I don't
Right.
know.
Well,
Yeah. Anyway.
I think we should segue because there was
Yeah.
a poem, because so like you and I had talked earlier about choosing two poems for each other to read.
Yes.
And there was one in particular of yours that totally is about what you were just talking about
Oh,
the
cool.
idea of like that I flagged for you, and now I can't find it. Give me 1 second. But it's a love poem, you know, about your marriage.
Oh, I bet I know which one it is,
And
but
it's so, oh, here, I found it. Wait, no, that's not it. Hold on. And I loved it because of, oh, is this it? Yeah, this is it, I think. No, this isn't it. I do love In Our Small House Only a Wall Separates Us, but that's not it.
is it How Dare Anyone Say I Don't Know
Yeah,
Love?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I have another one I flagged.
Okay, cool. Do we like go back and forth, or do I read both of mine at once and then I tell you which ones I picked for you?
Yeah, we could do that. So okay, so I want you to read that one. And then I
Okay.
also want you to read on page 84 when Macaulay Culkin was the world's biggest star.
Okay. Yeah, pop culture indeed.
Yeah,
Okay. All
exactly.
right. We're hitting the topics that we're talking about.
Yeah.
In pop culture. Okay. So this poem is really about how my husband and I made the decision not to have children. And really, it is something that people actually say, which is like,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't know love until I looked into my child's eyes. And I always think that's a little
It's
condescending.
a lot.
Yeah. And
Yep.
I'm sure people do understand love in any way, but to act as though that's the only way to understand love.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like pretty insulting, I think. And so, yeah, I decided, and I actually wrote this for a workshop where someone had literally said this very.
They said that. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
So, and then
It's such a great poem.
Thank you. Okay. How dare anyone say I don't know love? Because I never prayed to the ceiling and pushed. Because I never held a hybrid you, me, and named it. Unconceived ghost, I can almost see dancing barefoot in sprinkler mist. Beautiful dream I've never wanted. People explain my sad life to me. People explain dogs are not children. How dare anyone say I don't know what I'm missing? They don't know what they're missing. Our bed not quite an island, our bed a peninsula. We slip into sleep instead of making dinner. We order in, we linger. I don't post this love because not everyone has it. I don't poem this love, private drawer, quiet corner. They don't know what they're missing. Our matador hearts, our greenhouse love.
So beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Wait, before you read the pop culture ones,
Yeah.
I also want you to read the Morning Abecedarian with Dogs on 52.
Okay. This is fun.
That's another it's just like another kind of, I think what I love about this book is exactly what you said. Like there are some really hard poems, really intensely emotional poems about family. But then there are these beautiful odes to life, which is, like the everyday, like there's that also, I mean, I can't have you read the whole book, but there's also like the ordinary magic poem I really love too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't
So
think yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Well, yeah, I don't know. Something I've been really examining a lot lately is
yeah.
I think this book for me is really about I had a hard upbringing for many reasons. And my life now is really peaceful and
Yeah.
stable and
Wonderful.
wonderful. Yeah. Words that maybe sound boring, like peaceful and stable, but like it's the best. And I feel really lucky. And it's an interesting juxtaposition, I think, that so many of the heavy poems are the past and so many of the like joyful poems are now. And so, yeah, this is this will be fun to read. Yeah, it's just a very normal, like everyday morning poem, but yeah, Abecedarian. So, morning Abecedarian with dogs. All three dogs burrowed under our chins. All three dogs growl at the alarm. Eventually, coffee and fruit. We delay going out, but look how happy it makes them, jockeying for first out the kitchen door, running laps in the cold. Muddy paws, but I never mind wiping them. Oh, they stand so patiently, barely quivering as they raise one leg, then another. Shower, dress in the dark, rush, rush until you walk into my view, kiss me goodbye. We can forget, crossing off to-do lists, yawning. But this is the zenith of our lives. Yes, this.
Yay. I love all the Abecedarians. I just think they're such a hard poem to write, and like yours are just so like they seem just so effortless,
Thank you.
which they obviously aren't, but like they're so beautiful. Like I love that one because it's like a little window into your life or into someone's life, and I think it's a beautiful poem.
I really love writing in that form. I think that I don't know, I wrote my first one just a few years ago, and it was just for an online class I was taking.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I never used to write them, and like maybe I write one a year if that.
I really love forms. That's something else I didn't used to let myself do. I was like, oh, I'm a free verse poet. Like I was just like, I don't know, forms intimidate me.
Totally.
Yeah. And again, once I started looking at them as like play,
Exactly.
yeah, and it takes directions I would have gone, and it's just, yeah, I really love that. Should we? I mean, I feel like we're like, should we go to this for a bit and then I read another
and then read your Chloe Calkin one? Sure.
Yeah, let's do that. So, okay, the first one I picked for you.
Oh yeah, this is the surprise we should say.
Oh yeah, we didn't tell each other, so I think that's like fun. So let me actually pull something up really fast. When I was preparing for like the little interview that we wrote together, I wrote my favorite lines from your book. I'm gonna read some of those to you.
I did that when I blurbed your book, but I have no idea where that document is yet.
Well, okay, thank you. I love that. Someday, send that to me. Yeah, I loved your blurb, by the way. It was so beautiful. So the first one I'm gonna have you read is Stay Quiet, and it's on page 29. And two of my favorite lines from your whole book were from that poem, and they were, "My feelings are shorthand for my hope." And oh my God, I felt that in my gut. And then the story could end here, but sometimes the world goes red. And I thought, oh my God, that's like such a hinge, like such a, yeah, I thought that was so powerful. So yeah, I have many other lines that I picked, but I just read those from the poem I'm requesting, and now everybody will be like, ears perked for those particular lines. So that, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so Stay Quiet is a prose poem. And it's one of those poems that kind of came out of two things. One was the news, which I've tried to stop watching. And two was like being on the subway in New York and just like seeing something and writing down notes on my phone, which later on became a poem, which is like I'm constantly taking notes on my phone about things. And sometimes they turn to poems and sometimes they don't. This has an epigraph. After it is announced that ICE detains more children at the border on June 22nd, 2018. Stay quiet. I'm on the 2 train to Penn Station, worn and worried, but big-hearted and drawn in. This is the moment when you almost want to shake me, but you don't, because my feelings are shorthand for my hope. On this day, everyone is thumbing their anger and carelessly flipping off the quiet. This is the moment when you almost want to pull me out of this scene, but you can't because the doors have just closed. It is a surreal juxtaposition, an experiment in pettiness. I came in after. A man was yelling at a woman, "Do you know how I feel? Do you know how I feel?" To which the woman responded, "I said I was sorry. I didn't see you." The man badgers on, "You stepped on me. You didn't feel that?" I look around. I'm standing by the door. I feel the threat on my throat. I feel the brutality in my knees. This is the moment when you want to tell me I'm being dramatic, and I am, but I feel it in my gut, my spleen. That anger needs a bigger destination. Suddenly, the gates of hell fly open, stubborn and raging. There are 2 small children, tourists, I think, watching, hiding behind their mother at the door. Another man saddles out of his apathy with, "She said she was sorry." And the first man turns like a thief caught in a robbery, and I see his face go blank. He turns again to the woman. "What are you going to do about the children? What are you going to do about the children?" The story could end here, but sometimes the world goes red. Sometimes the world flails and burns. This is a larger mystery. I avert my gaze and look at the woman sitting closest to where I stand. She is on her cell phone, reading what looks like the Bible. The Lord fights so you can stay quiet. And I wish for a second that I had that kind of faith. Don't we all want to pick a fight with this world? Stay quiet, I mutter to no one. Stay quiet, I mutter to the door. Stay quiet, I mutter to the platform. Stay quiet, I mutter to my heart. Stay quiet.
Ugh,
It
this is
was a
just
scary
so
moment.
powerful. Yeah, I mean, terrifying, and you capture it perfectly. And that, yeah, no, thank you. I loved hearing you read it too, and so much I want to say. I mean, you're so good with repetition. I mean, we were talking about forms and like how much I love playing with forms, but something you do so well, yeah, is you play with like repetition. And now I want to like swerve and have you read one of your poems that does that. Like just like all the like wordplay that you do. And I don't know, could I just ask, well, no, that breaks the spirit. I was going to be like, would you read one of those poems that does that? But
Whatever you want.
oh my gosh, but I want to pick the right one. Okay. All right. Is it silly to ask for you to read Of Tyrant in Jest? Because that was
No,
one
I read it. I read that the other night. Yeah, that's a good one. Hold
I,
on. It's at the
yes,
end.
I know what page it is if you need that.
I have it, 44, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah. So,
yeah,
oh,
sound
sorry.
no, that's all. They go ahead.
So a tyrant in jest is what's it called? An anagram. It's an anagram
Yes.
where all the words in a poem come out, all the letters in the words come out of the word tyrant. And it's like right on the nose of what you were saying, right? It's totally a poem of play. Originally when I wrote the book, when I started writing towards the book, I thought that all the poems were going to be titled Of Tyrant, like 1, Of Tyrant 2, Of Tyrant 3. And a lot of them were. And then I ended up giving them titles. So this was always Of Tyrant in Jest, but the of is in brackets. So it's kind of just like Tyrant in Jest. And it's really one of the only poems in the book that is very blatantly about a specific tyrant without necessarily naming them. Okay. Of Tyrant in Jest. Any rant, any tat, any rat-a-tat-tat, any tar ant, any nay, any tan tart, any rant, rat, 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 rat. So, yeah, and that got published in Forklift, Ohio, which is a magazine that's not around anymore that Matt Hart used to do, who's one of my favorite poets ever. And I was so excited when he accepted that poem because like it's funny, but it's not funny. And And I don't really know if people are going to be able to see it because my background is blurred.
Oh, mine is all.
Yeah, hold yours up. But the
Yeah.
words, you can see the words are bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
thanks for asking me about that one.
No, it's just, yeah. Well, and I like that we just kind of were getting inspired by our talk and like swerving and maybe picking more poems than we'd originally said. But I definitely wanted something that, because I feel like how we wrote these books is a big part of what makes them special to us. And so it's not just the content, although the content is probably number one, but like, yeah, me writing in all these forms and you like experimenting in these ways with repetition and I don't know, like literally dissecting words apart. It's just fascinating. So I really
Well,
love
and
that.
for me,
Yeah.
this kind of goes back to what we were saying before about pop culture being a kind of vehicle to write about something maybe you wouldn't necessarily write about. Like for me, the play and the repetition kind of got me to do the same thing. Like
Mhm.
Of Tyrant is a book about the many tyrants in our lives, like political, personal, romantic, professional, like there are tyrants all around us in our dated. I mean, you could get coffee in the morning and, the tyrant could, who knows what, tell you off, right? Or you could be at the bank or like whatever. But for me, like when I started writing up most of this book, it was like 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. And a lot of these poems, like, thank God I was able to write them because it was a relief for me. It was like a way to kind of like a cathartic thing. That choosing some of these things like wordplay and repetition and things like that got me to kind of get it off my chest. Where which is why I think, like Lisa was asking me this before we started recording, like how's it going with the new book and all the readings and stuff. The first couple times that I read from the book, it was like exhausting. Like I really felt like I had like an exorcism. Like that's dramatic, but like I felt my energy like really drain, and I couldn't figure out why. And I was like, wow, it just really takes a lot out of me to like go to that place because that's not like who I am.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah. I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah.
Okay, I have an idea. I think maybe I'll read the Macaulay Culkin poem because you requested it. And then, okay, maybe like a little spin because we just read 2 poems each, and maybe we read 2 more each. We read one that the other one requests. I didn't even tell you what my other pick is for you.
Oh my God. Okay.
And then maybe we like do a second poem as well, but it's like a gift to the other person. So it's like a poem we think like is inspired by our conversation today. Something one of us said that makes us think of it. Okay. All right. So I'll start with the Macaulay Culkin one, and then I had this idea because I have one I want to read specifically for you. Okay, cool. So
and I also just want to say before you start that I saw Home Alone this year for the first time since I saw it like in the theater as a kid.
Oh my gosh, really?
And I like couldn't believe how much it still stands up. What's the word? Not stands up. Stands up. Yeah. Holds up. Thank you.
It's
how much
so
it still
good.
holds up and like how much I still loved it. Like it's great.
It's a fantastic movie. It's like maybe my favorite Christmas movie.
I think I might start watching it like every December. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Our local independent movie theater plays it every year, and I always
so good.
Yeah.
Still funny, still good.
Hey, I know. Well, this poem, again, pop culture, but it's like inspired by the fact that Macaulay Culkin is about my age.
Right.
Yeah, and like how wild that is. Because, anyway.
It is.
Yeah, and kind of a content warning. It goes in a really unexpected place, so just like that's pretty dark, but okay. When Macaulay Culkin was the world's biggest star. When Macaulay Culkin was the world's biggest star, I was rinsing my filmy watercolor cup, having carried that morning's sunrise with me into 4th grade art. We all got 2 plastic columns of Easter egg colors and a brush that scratched against the paint. No one was counting on me for box office gold, just not to spill onto my neighbor's paper. I feel like I know Macaulay Culkin, as if being children at the same time means we grew up together. In this way, I also know the Columbine shooters, all of us seniors in high school. When they were killing, when their lives were ending, I was in AP Spanish on a day when half the class was absent, so we played Trivial Pursuit in English. Eric Harris is still 18, Dylan Klebold 17, and Macaulay Culkin is alive, but he's 10 forever. red sweater and toy rifle strap. I am 41. No one tells me they can't believe I'm 41. They can. So,
I just love that ending. I think that's one of my favorite things about you as a poet, which is why you're one of my favorite poets, is just what you explained, like the meandering that you do in a poem. Because yeah, it does take that dark turn with Columbine, but it's just so fitting. And then that whole ending, it's like, no one tells me I'm not 41, they can. And it's great.
thank you so
I
much.
just love it.
And like I think it really does speak to like how much pop culture does shape us. I mean, and like
Absolutely.
it's weird how like school shootings are kind of pop culture, like, and they shouldn't be like, but they sort of are. Like, I don't know. It was just,
Yeah. Well,
I think
because
it might
again,
be-
it's like it's a popular, just because something is popular in culture doesn't mean that it's good. It just
Right.
means that it's something people knew in that time period
Yeah,
to be like current events, so to speak.
yeah.
And it's
That's
funny because we've never talked about this, but in terms of teaching, like I'm like such a literary term teacher. Like for the first week of school, I'm just like, let's go over to exposition. Let's talk about illusions. Like, let's talk about symbolism. And so the whole year, that's like constantly what we're talking about.
yeah,
And so kids like are always making fun of me about illusions and stuff like that. But illusions aren't just pop culture, right? They could be history, they could be religion, they could be whatnot. So like Columbine, yeah, like if you were a child growing up at that time or an adult at that time, like of course.
of course. No, totally.
Interesting.
All right. So probably the last poem I'll read. I just like looking at time, like time has just gone by like that. It's wonderful. But I wanted to read the poem in this book that I sing because of the singing. So this one is called My Paranoia Considers the Song I Wrote at age 10. I took to my keyboard, wrote new lyrics for Open Arms by Journey. Though I didn't know it was Open Arms by Journey, I'd heard it without realizing. Memory is so strange, I still mouth my words instead of theirs. Sometimes it feels like I'm all alone. Nobody's there when I come home. Age 10, I wrote this, living with two loving parents. I knew nothing of nobody there, everybody there, always, asking me to empty the dishwasher or make my bed. What I longed for? Solitude. I wrote the opposite. I'm still writing the opposite, writing my father's death into every poem, even this one, when my life now is so happy I'm guilty about it. My loving husband, my 3 cute dogs, everyone we pass on walks agrees are cute. Shouldn't I stop pretending just because poets are supposed to be sad? Sometimes it feels like I won't die alone. My husband's there when I come home. Even at 10, I knew no one wants to hear that shit. So, okay.
Why are you such an amazing singer? It's crazy.
I don't think I'm that good. I think
Can't take it.
I can just carry a tune and that's all.
So good. It's such a I just love that poem. It's so great. I love that book so much.
Oh, thank you so much.
I mean, because so much of what you just said about the book is in that poem. Like that whole idea of feeling guilty for being happy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what a poet is supposed to be. It's great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, this might not be like a very exciting choice because you already know, I think, that this is my favorite poem in your book, but make it. I just think it's so hopeful and like I remember, okay, let me read to you what I wrote about that one in my little notes. I might have sent this to you, I can't remember. So I wrote, I actually needed these lines today, and I quoted, the white light of consciousness, its hope, love, and despair, all engineer what I now realize. What will pass will pass. And then I also quoted, I hear praise. I turn my head and a mother is carrying her child. You know what? I won't say the rest of that because I like, it's the whole stanza, I think. But I just wrote, I literally cried at Make It. It's been a very hard
Oh,
day and nothing had helped until your poem. So
oh, you never
that's,
told me that. That means so much
why
to
did I
me.
write it? Like I was telling it to you and then I never told you. I just wrote it in my little notes, but
I
now,
appreciate that.
now I've told you. So.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Yeah, so Make It is a poem that's written in couplets. It's maybe one of the few poems that's written in couplets, actually. And again, it came from an observation. Like I was crossing the street and I saw again this mother and this daughter. And again, like there was just so much horrendous news about like Trump and Hillary and like the debates, and it was just like you couldn't, like it was just everywhere and it was awful. And so like when I saw a moment of hope, I like wanted to capture it.
Ugh.
Make It. At the back of my feet is winter, with its fragmented mash of would-be loathing. The white light of consciousness, its hope, love, and despair, all engineer what I now realize. What will pass, will pass. I cascade onto another street corner, drawing together a following of moments, of struggles, of my newfound politics. What is delivered in disruption, traffic, the cold, and my breath in the cold turns into something vulnerable, something a single fear could swat away. At the corner of Broadway and 64th Street, racing to make the light, racing to widen my to widen my pace, my gaze, and my heart, I hear her praise. I turn my head and a mother is carrying her child across the street, saying, "You have been so good today," as she puts her down at the median. I smile. We all would like to hear those affirmations. The second light turns green and the numbers start descending. 25, 24, 23. I'm texting a friend. I see that same mother and daughter start to run. 22, 21, 20. The mother has an open smile, compelling the length of her whole being with song. 14, 12, 10. I hear the daughter start screaming, "We are going to make it! We are going to make it!" Her mother takes her hand as they step up onto the curb. I look at them, and then I look at the light turn from 5 to 4 to 2 to 0. I think to myself, we are going to make it. I am going to make it. This day, this month, this year. What perches, what roots, what winds and cracks, what tenses and dwells, what ails us, and what hurtles us down into the whistling air of despair, all will not stop us. We are going to make it.
Oh, I mean, God, this is
Thank
so
you.
beautiful. It like gets me every time. And I don't think I'd heard you read that before. So
Probably
it,
not. Oh,
yeah,
thanks.
yeah, thank you. I think maybe I'm gonna need that poem every time I hear that poem.
Oh, yeah, I think it's like one of the tender poems, and it's also like it's funny, like in terms of being, poets and being teachers, being women in this world, it's like sometimes we don't realize that what we're writing in the poem is kind of what we need to be saying to ourselves and what we need to kind of acknowledge things to ourselves. So like just in reading, I don't think I've read this poem out loud yet since the book's come out, but like I've read it before it was published in the book. And like that whole idea about my newfound politics, like that was kind of me kind of like rubbing myself on my back and being like, yeah, you're writing these political poems and it's okay, keep going.
Yeah,
Even though I didn't realize like I needed that, I must have needed that.
yeah. You're
You know,
allowed to. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So
Oh, it's so good.
thank you. All right, should we do the gifts for each other?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, wait, I think I did mine. Like I sang, like that
Oh,
was
you did, yeah.
that
Okay.
was me for you. So do you have one for me?
All right, yeah, I gotta think about it then. Hold
Okay.
on. I need a second.
No, that's fine. While you're looking,
Yeah.
I just was like going through my pile and I wanted to point out, like we had talked about many things that we might talk about. And one of them I wanted to like at least mention was that Leah has this Stay Brave series she does, and I love it so much. And I thought I'd point out that we're both in the Braving the Body
Yay!
anthology, which is very cool. And I thought, oh, like other ways of being brave. And I just, to tie it all together, I'm like, I feel like both of these collections were just full of bravery for us for different reasons, letting ourselves write
Absolutely.
things we never let ourselves write before. So
And we were like so excited they were coming out at the same time.
yes, I know. And then we're like in this anthology together, and we're doing
Are
this
you in the
together.
100 Pictures of Honey Zoom one with me next week?
I don't know, no, but
Oh, okay.
no, but I'm gonna try to go.
Yeah.
Again, it's the time of year, but I want to. That, yeah.
I know.
that'd be awesome.
I know. All right. I'm gonna read What Does the X Mark for you.
Oh, good. I actually, I don't know if I told you, but one of my favorite lines is from that. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
This is on page 5 and 6.
Okay.
And this is a prose poem and different prose poem sections.
Okay.
What does the X mark? There are dancers on the train, boys, teenagers, contorting their bodies through the slither of the subway. The spool of the stop and go, the rush of the slide, the stir, the silence, the whir. The dancers look at a woman, her body an X of bone and bone, her body a warning, a stop, a flare. She screams, I just want to be left alone. I just want to be left alone. I just want to be left alone. And the dancers say, dancing isn't criminal. Don't take your bad day out on us. In the lift going to the airport, a 90-year-old retired man, our driver, Mario, and I start talking about driving. The old man says that he gave up his license years ago, that he doesn't want to be responsible for taking anyone's life, but is fine with someone taking his own. Mario and I look at each other in the rear view. Mario says, no, every one of us is important. On the train in Chicago, after leaving the conservatory, I sit on the train riding into the loop, a peel of the city, a circle, a circuit, a turn gone wrong, then right. Two couples get on and sit opposite me. I am reading a book, lost in the page and the word and the desire of Elio and Oliver. I look up from the felt life to my real life and see both women opposite me have their right legs crossed over the right leg of their partners, their men. It is like an abstraction, a surrealist painting, a beyond I can't reach. I stare at these circuits of power and play, of desire and play, of power and crosshairs, and God, it felt like a warning. And I sat there feeling disgust and something sallow, and I felt a circle had formed around me. And suddenly, in the silent chaos, in the temptation that wasn't there, I felt a thirst. Was it jealousy? Envy? Longing? I don't know, but I felt elongated inside the circumference, arced, radiant. I felt punctuated, yet punctual, red and fired, scalding and scarleted, yet bound. Where was the mark? Where was the marker? And had the X already been drawn? I was alone, and alone I was. And I got off at my stop and went beyond the surface, underground, to the subway, where a woman was holding a baby, dancing, orbiting closer and closer to the performer singing on the platform. At last, my love has come along. My lonely days are over, and life is like a song. And I stand there looking for the song and the love and what lies outside our power, outside the woman, outside the people that protect themselves from themselves. Every one of us is important.
Oh, oh my gosh. That, oh, I loved everything about that. I was not expecting to sing, and now I feel like we got each other the most perfect present. Like the most perfect.
Totally.
But yeah, oh my God, the two lines, that every one of us is important, like that almost felt like one of the themes of your book. And maybe
Yeah.
I just really needed to hear that. Yeah. But the other one was just this like small moment where you're reading Call Me by Your Name, right? And yeah, it's like I look up from the felt life to my real life, and I was just like, oh, that is gorgeous. I really love that moment. So yeah.
I was talking about that book and that movie today, actually, which is
Yeah.
funny.
Oh, I haven't even read the book. But I have an autographed copy of the book because this is cool. When I saw the movie, it was at this local movie theater where they had as a special guest the author of the book, and so
Oh,
like watched the movie and then he talked about.
Oh, how cool.
That was-
I have a sign. I mean, I saw him speak at the 92nd Street Y because I was so obsessed with the book, but it was when the sequel came out. So we signed both of them, but I haven't read the sequel. But it's one of those movies. It's one of those times where I saw the movie first and I fell so hard in love with the movie that I had to read the book. And I think they both are just gorgeous.
Oh,
It's not something where I thought the book was better. I just thought they're both like equally beautiful.
maybe I'll read it this summer. I'm so
So
excited
good.
to like read whatever the hell I want. I can't
Oh my
wait.
God, I know.
Ah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
We have a question from Cheryl.
Good.
Yay.
Cheryl asks, do you both have a favorite form or an intimidating form, and most importantly, a comforting form?
Oh,
Ooh, good
I'm writing
question.
those words down really fast. Favorite and intimidating and comforting.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any automatic answers to any of those?
Yeah, well, I have the chat open, so I'm just looking at it there on the chat. My favorite form is definitely a prose poem. Like, I just love prose poems to death. Like, it's my favorite. I'm always cheering them on. In terms of an intimidating form, probably like a sestina. Like, I think sestinas are probably the most intimidating poems. I have one in my last book, The Barbarous Century. Yeah, but I've gotten more comfortable with a lot of other forms. Like, I used to be afraid of the Abecedarian, and I'm not anymore.
Yay.
And a comforting form, I think for comfort, it's either like a sonnet where I know, okay, I'm gonna write 14 lines and like that's just what I'm gonna do and that's it. And again, like the prose poem, because it's just something that feels cozy to me. Like it's like a little room that you walk into.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's I agree that probably the sestina is the most intimidating. I have one in Midlife Abecedarian,
Yeah.
but I have a better one that I've written since.
Nice.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. My friend Marianne Kunkel and I are doing this kind of cool thing where every month we pick a form and we each write a poem in that form and then we like send them to each other.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, and so I picked Sestina and she was like, "What are you doing?" You know, but I was like, "Let's do it." And um I was writing about something really painful and hard and it was fun though. Like it's like such a weird thing to say, but like it like I don't know, it's so healing, I think, to try to like, make everything fall into place.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um maybe this is a weird pick, but maybe my comforting form is a villanelle. I love villanelles and I find them very comforting to read. Maybe that like repetition factor, just like coming back. One of my, I mean,
Wow, that's like a deep cut.
yeah, thank you. But yeah, I mean, that's like one, I mean, it's such a classic, maybe cliche,
Yeah.
but classic is the thing to say, like, favorite poems ever is, you know, one art. And so
Yeah,
like,
totally.
I prefer poems when they break the form. Like, I think it's much more interesting.
I was
and
just
then
gonna say that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
teach a lot of poetry workshops with the poetry school in London, and there was a class I started teaching, and I think I've taught it 2 or 3 times now on breaking form.
Yeah.
So like using form as the vehicle to write the poem and then breaking out of it. And I think those are some of my favorite poems I've ever written because, you know, if I write a sestina and it doesn't work, then you move it into something else.
Yeah, that's really cool. No, I think that's so interesting. I teach Fatima Oscar's WWE, which is like a ghazal that like kind of goes away from the form like halfway through. And I think it's like one of the most stunning poems I've ever read. My favorite is the Abecedarian. I like named a book after it.
Exactly, you did.
I feel like that like just like I don't know. It's also one of my favorite ways to revise. Like several of my Abecedarians come from free verse poems that I think are failed. And so I'm like,
Wow.
why don't I just use that and that's how I'll revise it? And I often end up liking that a lot more. Like the title poem, Midlife Abecedarian, was originally a free verse poem that wasn't very good. And
you decided to move it into an Abecedarian?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's just like psychotic. Yeah, so I like would never dream of doing that. Like I was just talking today about that. Like when a poem doesn't work, I usually just like let it die. I very rarely like revise things, but I do have a poem I wrote like a month ago, and everything's working but the first stanza. So I am gonna have to like reshape that first stanza, but
Good.
I'm not turning it into an abecedarian.
I don't know what's wrong with me, but I will say, like,
No, it's great. Go with it.
I love it. I love revision so much. But like the first poem in my book, which I forget what that's called, but like it's before the first section, you know, it's like it's got
Yeah.
like a
I don't know what
whatever.
it's called. Yeah.
But anyway, it like it's a sonnet crown and crown of sonnets, but it's like rhymes, you know. So, but it's like all lines from failed poems. Like it was really fun.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was just all it's like the graveyard of yeah, but it was really fun to kind of put together because I realized I'm like constantly writing about the same themes, so they kind of like fit.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it was really fun to write. So
That's
anyway.
really cool. Yeah, I know a lot of people that have fun with those kind of things. I mean, literally, I've never done that. I've never gone into like my Google Drive and like pulled out lines ever. Like I could, but I haven't.
Yeah, I have a private blog and I just think it's really fun if I'm like stuck, I'll just search a word or something and I'll just comes up and then I'll if nothing ever happened to that poem, if I considered it dead, then I'm like, well, maybe this one line, I'll see if I can do something with that.
I think that's wonderful. Yeah, I just haven't even looked. Like today I started looking at my first book because I had it at school and I was looking for something someone needed like a poem. And I haven't even looked at my first book in like years. And I was like, oh my God, I love this book.
Oh, that's such a great way to feel because I look at my first book and I'm like, this is humiliating.
I know you won't even give it to me.
Oh, that's true. I need to. I will. I'm just much better now. But I mean, actually, I just not like in real life, but I mean, I did. I saw him. I was in the audience. We did, yeah. But Hanif Abdurraqib, he came to Lawrence and talked, and it was incredible. But he said something that really resonated. It was this idea of like being gentle with our earlier selves who were like writing the best they knew how, and I was like, okay, that's beautiful. I love that. Instead of being embarrassed, that's the right approach.
Yeah, so. But like me talking about my first book of poems, I mean, that came out in 2012. You want to talk about like my thesis for my MFA, which is back in 2004, like, no, thank you. I have not looked at that. Those poems never saw the light of day. I mean, they exist on the internet because Sarah Lawrence does that, but like, no.
Gotcha. Yeah. See, my first book came out in 2015, but
right.
But it contains poems from that far back.
You told me that,
yeah. So, but I didn't know. I really didn't know.
Yeah. Oh, we have another question, I see.
Oh, yeah. I'm not. I should pull up the chat. I'll pull it up.
So if you see it, the question is, do you have dedicated writing time, or do you write on the fly on your phone or a notebook, or do you do both? Kind of what's your process like?
I personally try to have like dedicated writing time. Ideally, it's like once a week, and I go to my favorite coffee shop and I make like a real afternoon out of it, and I try to prioritize that. And that is my favorite if I'm able to do that. I think it's very cool, Leah, that you can like take notes on your phone and then like go turn that into a poem. I've tried that. It doesn't really work for me. Yeah.
Okay, but hold on. I don't mean that I have like, thank you, but I don't mean that I have like the whole poem on my phone. It'll be like a line.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like it'll be like, I mean, I'd have to scroll. So basically, like I have me as a contact in my phone. So I text myself notes.
Oh.
Because like I just what's easiest for me to do. And it really pains me because I love notebooks. I have 1,000 notebooks, but like as we moved further along into the future, it's just easier to take notes on your phone. Like it really breaks my heart, but what are you going to do? And so like I'll write like a sentence down, like when I was in that taxi with Mario, like he said, like I heard the guy say that like he's happy with someone taking his own life, but he doesn't want to take someone else's. And I was like, that's crazy. And I wrote that down. And then he wrote down like Mario, and he said each one of us is important. And then when I like sat down to write that poem, like I had those 2 lines. So it's like then I kind of write between the gaps. But no, I don't type up like a poem on my phone, but same. I really just sit down to write once a week. I've been in a writing workshop, for years that meets on Wednesdays. So I usually try to write Monday or Tuesdays.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
I usually write pretty fast. You know, that's just the way it goes. So
see, I think we're doing it totally differently, but I think for a similar purpose. Like, it's like you need like a spark, you need like something to start it. And for you, it might be something you observe and you've texted yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't know what else to write. I'll just like search my old files, and it's like I'm looking for
Yeah.
something like an idea a previous version of myself had, but like didn't really know how to write it yet. So
Right.
then I'll like get the idea from that, and then now that I'm better, I'll go write a better
Well,
version.
what I used to do kind of before I started texting myself was I would have the New York Times with me and I would just like have my eyes scan phrases and I would just like write those phrases down and kind of incorporate them into sentences.
Wow.
Like that idea of found language kind of like undid something in my brain that got me to write something.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that.
But I wish like I could say that, you know, I'm like Alice Walker who like got up at 5 a.m. and like or 4 a.m. when all her kids were sleeping and like wrote all the I mean, not that I have kids, but like I don't
Neither
have
do
like a
I. That's why
morning.
we're able to carve out once a week and we don't have to.
Yeah, like I don't have like mornings where I'm writing for 3 hours in the morning or anything like that.
No. These
So
are
yeah.
thank you. Good questions. I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, we have about 10 minutes left, if you can believe it.
Crazy.
Do you have like a final poem that you want to read before we close up, or what do you think?
Could read our Braving the Body poems if you wanted to. I don't know if that you might not have it.
Yeah. No, I could get mine. Yeah, hang on.
Okay. All right. I don't know. I just thought of that. Um,
She knows exactly where to go. That's awesome.
I love that. Yeah.
Well, because I'm doing an in-person reading next week and then I'm doing a Zoom reading next week.
That's very cool.
So yeah,
By the way, how sweet was it? Like they mailed it to us and they put like a little postcard in.
just took my postcard out. Yeah.
It was like
Very nice.
so thoughtful. Do you want to read yours first, or do you want me to read mine first?
Oh, I don't care. You can go
read.
first.
I'll go first. Okay, I'll go first. Okay. All right. So like the idea of the Braving the Body anthology, in case people don't know, but it was just this really awesome anthology with editors Nicole Callahan, Pichendo Bao, and Jennifer Franklin, and
It's Harbor Editions.
Yes, love
It's
Harbor.
out now.
That's right. Yes. Also, did you know that the editor of Harbor Editions, Allison Blevins, like is my dear friend, like in real life, IRL? Like we literally went to the same middle school and high school, and we were in an in-person writing group together. Yeah, we went to the same college. We have the same mentor.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like when we were at AWP doing this reading, I was like, look at Allison, look at me. It was like really awesome.
Wild.
Anyway, I know so many of us, we just know through this world, but like we were in like a play together in middle school. So anyway.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, our professor was obviously very good. So
that's amazing. Yeah.
All right. So it's called Hereditary. At a funeral, an old woman asks what's wrong. I'm furious. My brother just says what's wrong. Cerebral palsy. He balances as best he can. He trails behind. I link my arm through his, carry his plate to the table, but don't make a big deal. I'd do it for anyone. His biological mother died giving birth. He didn't get enough oxygen. The stress he must have felt just becoming. What we pass on, even without shared blood. Our father trailed behind after his strokes. I linked my arm through his. I carried his plate.
It's so beautiful. And I'm just looking at it and like the couplets are so perfect for the poem too. It's all in couplets.
Thank you.
It's just, yeah, these poems are all really heavy. I mean, I'm not to say the whole anthology is, but like mine's a heavy poem too. And I think when you're writing about just the body in general, it's kind of hard to have a happy poem that
That's true. My body's awesome. I love everything about it.
I love my body.
That poem.
That's going to be our next assignment, that we love.
Yeah, that's true. You know what? Let's challenge each other. Write a happy body poem.
I mean, not that I hate my body, but I can't say that I've written like a poem where I'm like, I love it. Okay, so this is actually a poem from which is an excerpt from my hybrid memoir, Delicate Machine That's Looking for a Home. So this is an excerpt that I gave a title to, Reckoning. Reckoning. I tell myself, forgive. I need to forgive myself there and here. I need a reckoning to reckon with the interior pine, shrub, windbreak, heartbreak, the mother tongue of this life, of this body, the mother tongue of mothering. The mothering is a realization of grace, is a realization of the real and the unreal, and the reality that nothing is truly either. Nothing is more than the heart of the heart and the heart of the interior of your body.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. I love it. I love the shape of it. I'll hold it up since yours is.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it kind of meanders.
Oh, it does, but that's something else that I didn't used to do, play with white space, take up
Oh
more.
yeah, my fave.
Yeah, I love it too. I think
That's so going back to Cheryl's question, that's probably what is also very comforting to me, is playing with white space. That's like a comfort zone, which is not something most people would say probably. So
I think it's so interesting. Sometimes I'll just start to write a poem and I will just instinctively feel like that's the form it needs, is like white space. And I used to be so scared of it. And
many people are scared of it, yeah.
Do you like, I would dismiss it because like, you know, we do that. I was like, oh, it's pretentious. But now I'm like, no, it's not. It's not at all. It's like, it makes so much sense. Like unlocks.
But I think like, unless it's intrinsic to you, like innate to you, like with me, like I don't really think about it. I'm just like tap, 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 tap on the keyboard. But like for other people, like they have to kind of, I think, be forced to do that, to move a poem into that kind of quote unquote experimental form. Like of Tyrant, many of the poems are like prose poems. Many of them are in blocks or like single line, single word stanza, long stanzas. But again, I was looking at my first book this morning and like it is all over the page, like both margins. And that's why my first book had to be a big square.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to think about that. Like, what does it mean to like have different books where your main form is different?
Yeah. That is so interesting. Or like Victoria Ching kind of does that with like every
Yeah.
single, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah. And like maybe it's just, I don't know, it makes me think about how, well, she also writes like project books. I guess you do too. And I don't really think of myself as being like a project poet, but then again, maybe whatever is on your mind and whatever form you're writing in like a 3-year period or whatever it is, like it kind of is a project. It's just like not a formal project, but like
yeah, I've never thought any of my books were project based. It was all kind of like it's obsession. It's like what you keep going to.
Yeah, it's really well put. I love
So
that.
yeah. Well, thank you, Rebecca and Lisa. This has been amazing.
Really
Yeah, I was just gonna say, let me come and bring Lisa back too, because we were so glad. This has been so awesome. I've just really enjoyed it. I love going, like having my little heart, like Sweet Valley High and like, all these things. And I'm like, yeah, you can write about that. That's awesome. And we're just so grateful for your time tonight and really appreciate you being here. And I hope you'll come back, maybe, teach a class sometime or
Yeah.
see other things that we have going on.
That would be wonderful. And I'm so grateful. This was amazing. Well, I always love any opportunity to hang out with Leah, and
Same.
I think I really needed it too.
We might need more Zoom hangs, not recorded.
Yes. Yes.